So the NBA regular season is coming to a conclusion, probably quicker than a lot of people were anticipating, because it really just threw me by surprise. And because of this, what I decided to do is put a lot of my other videos that I was planning to put out on hold for a second, and more so focus on the conclusion of the regular season and give you all just a slew of videos in the next upcoming weeks. Because of this, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And on my first video wrapping up the season, what I decided to do was stay positive and give you my 4 biggest surprises of the 2017-28 season. If you feel like I missed anything, you can always leave it in the comment section below. But with that being said, let's get right into this. Entering the NBA season, there was a lot of questions for the Portland Trail Blazers and the type of success to expect from them this year, as they struggled to make the playoffs last year with a 500 record. Many people were asking, can Dame and CJ coexist with one another? Do they have enough help on the roster, especially coming off of the bench? And defensively, where can we expect someone to step up at an elite level? And oddly enough, at the end of the season, not only are all those questions answered, but this team is way better than I think a lot of people were expecting, as they are on pace to win 50 games. When it comes to the amount of help that is surrounding Dame, even though no, there isn't any star level athlete on this roster, still the competent pieces around them are more than enough to help them out in winning. Al-Farouq Aminu has stepped up when it comes to his ability to space the floor, and Shabazz Napier along with Evan Turner are pretty consistent options coming off the bench. Also, when it comes to the defensive side, shout out to Terry Stotts, as he's made a huge improvement on this team, especially interior defense with Nurkic, as Nurkic has become one of the more elite level rim protectors in the NBA. And we look at the Portland Trail Blazers only allowing 42 points in the paint, which is comparable to the Utah Jazz with Rudy Gobert, and OKC with Steven Adams. You can immediately throw Nurkic, or potentially at least for years to come, throw Nurkic in that same conversation. But when it comes to Dame and CJ, and we all know those are the 2 stars on this roster, they are working out completely fine. In the beginning of the season, I definitely was concerned about Dame as he has his struggles, but CJ was able to weather the storm until Dame came around and came back from his injury. And over the last month and a half, Dame has been on fire and has been a huge reason why they have propelled themselves to be one of the better teams in the NBA, especially in the Western Conference, as they have snagged the 3rd seed in a tough West. So when it comes to this team, there were definitely a lot of questions, but the fact that they've been able to rise to the occasion is pretty impressive from a team that barely made the playoffs last year and has made massive improvements on the defensive end. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, because just last year I was making a video saying how I didn't trust the process, but I'm not going to lie to you guys. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, they look pretty doggone good. I mean, the simple fact that they're just a rookie and sophomore duo able to do what they've been able to accomplish this season, it's been vastly impressive. And I know many people assume that this is a team that was going to make the playoffs because they were in a weaker conference. However, winning 50 games is something that many people were not anticipating. Robert Covington this year, especially early on, had a breakout season. He was a consistent 3-and-D guy, and that's something that almost every team in the NBA would love to have. And then we have Dario Saric, who I have consistently stated that I'm a huge fan of, having someone who's a little bit older on an extremely young team, having the ability to handle the ball, so all of that responsibility isn't put on Ben Simmons, while also having someone who's crafty enough to work inside, so Joel Embiid can be given some breaks offensively. And as a unit, this team was one of the better defensive teams in the NBA. Also, I have to give a massive amount of props to Brett Brown, someone that I still question to this day, but he still has been able to work this out with 2 players that are not that great shooters. And speaking of both of those players, Ben Simmons, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, and I'm a Donovan Mitchell fan, so I'm just be completely upfront and honest with you all, but still, he is the rookie of the year this season. And I know people love to make this argument that, well, technically speaking, he's not a rookie, but he didn't play last year, and we all know the rules. But nevertheless, even if you don't believe he's a rookie, the fact that he's been able to come on this team and have an impact so early on in his career is something that only all-time greats are able to do. And then on the other hand, we have Joel Embiid, who I've always been up and down on, but this year, just so we can stay positive, I'll speak pretty positively about him. Joel Embiid this year the post is his world. Like in today's league, there's just no one in the NBA who can consistently guard Joel Embiid, and that's something that I would love to see him dominate more. This year he struggled from behind the arc, so I highly advise just don't even worry about that, especially in the postseason when, again, there's not going to be anyone who can stop you. When it comes to rebounds, he grabs them at an elite level, especially for the amount of minutes that he plays. But the defensive end is something that I think a lot of people we were anticipating, but this is getting a little out of hand. Defensively, this guy is just remarkable. I would still love to see him be a little bit more active on the pick and roll, but the rim protection is already there, and which is a huge reason why many people are trying to make a case that he should win Defensive Player of the Year, which is really, really scary. And so I guess when you get Ben Simmons, who's arguably having the best rookie season since Kevin Durant or LeBron James, and then you add that with Joel Embiid, who is easily one of the most skilled big men in the NBA on both sides of the floor, and you add that with a whole bunch of young players and veterans on the roster, I guess 50 wins is something we should have been expecting entering the NBA, but crazy enough, very few people were expecting this, which is a huge reason why I just have to put them on this list. What happens when you lose your star athlete in Paul George, Jeff Teague, a starting point guard in today's NBA, and replace both of them with Victor Oladipo, Corey Joe, and Sabonis, who is a sophomore? You should more than likely get a lottery pick because that's what a lot of people were expecting from the Indiana Pacers, but oddly enough, this team is in the playoffs, and it's very surprising how well they've been able to turn this team around in such a small amount of time. And not only is it impressive that the Indiana Pacers are winning a significant amount of games and are on pace to win around 48 this year, but it's impressive on how they're able to win. This is an organization that is top 10 in offensive rating, and you would assume that a team that's top 10 in offense, especially in 2018, would be raining down from threes. However, this is an organization that is one of the worst three-point shooting teams, or at least a team that makes the least amount of three-pointers in today's NBA, only converting 9 of them on a game-to-game basis. I have to give a huge shout out to Nick McMillan because he's been able to really orchestrate this offense and be able to make that transition from PG to Victor Oladipo. Also, I got to give a huge shout out to a lot of the players on this roster that go underneath the radar. Miles Turner, Corey Joe, Darren Collins, Thad Young. They are all players that have the ability to space out the floor, but because of their high basketball IQ, they found other ways to be effective instead of just raining down threes or at least chucking them, even though they're probably not going to make it. And also, speaking of these players, shout out to Sabonis, a player who was in a really bad situation last year, and I'm happy he's been able to find his way on another team. He's been a consistent 11.8 rebound player coming off the bench, only playing 24 minutes. That is astonishing. But as we all know, Victor Oladipo is the star of this team, and I'm pretty sure you all were expecting this, but, I told you so. Victor Oladipo throughout his entire career has been a great player, but due to circumstances outside of his control, he has been utilized incorrectly. And now with the Indiana Pacers, he's been given the opportunity to not only control the offense, but defensively be the type of player that I've always been expecting out of him as well, as he's been a consistent 24-point scorer on great shooting splits, and right now he is leading the NBA in steals. And hopefully this continues to go on for years and years to come, because I believe more people need to be recognizing how great of a player Victor Oladipo is and has been throughout his entire career. But if not, at the bare minimum, we can at least celebrate what this team has done after losing their star athlete in Paul George, moving on from Jeff Teague, and not too long ago moving forward without Frank Vogel as well, because I don't think anyone was anticipating this type of success. Now, when it comes to underrated, I definitely believe that word gets thrown around way too often in the NBA, but the Utah Jazz, they fit the bill. And not only are they underrated, but no one was expecting this type of success from this organization, because entering the regular season, this is a team that lost their star athlete in Gordon Hayward, traded away Rodney Hood in the middle of the season, and Rudy Gobert would go on to miss 26 games during the regular season. And yet somehow, some way, a rookie star in Donovan Mitchell was able to lead this team for majority of the regular season, and once Rudy Gobert came back, they took a whole nother step in greatness. because since January, which is around the time Rudy Gobert came back and Donovan Mitchell was a full-time starter, record-wise, this is easily one of the top teams in the NBA. Offensively, they've been able to find their pace and actually be a consistent offensive team since January as well. And defensively, they have been historically one of the better teams in the last 10 to 15 years. We're talking about in 2018, where teams are just shooting threes willy-nilly, and every team is scoring well over 105 to 110 points on a night-to-night basis. The Utah Jazz have been able to hold their opponent to under 100 points. And so, like I stated before, when it comes to being underrated, again, a term that people throw out way too frequently, Quinn Snyder is easily one of the most underrated coaches in the NBA. The way he's been able to consistently revamp this roster over the last 6 to 8 months after losing Gordon Hayward, then trying to implement both Rodney Hood and Donovan Mitchell with one another, and then turning around, implementing Rudy Gobert into their offense and their defense. The fact that not only have they been able to stay afloat during that stretch, but been coached to an elite level defensively. Again, Quinn Snyder is the definition of underrated. And when you look at a lot of other players on this roster, not only do you have Donovan Mitchell, who, even though I don't believe will win Rookie of the Year, is easily having one of the better rookie seasons that we've seen over the last 5 to 7 years. Not only that, Rudy Gobert, if he had played, 10 more games, would easily win Defensive Player of the Year, but people don't really want to admit it. And then you have players like Joe Ingles and Ricky Rubio, who have been going underneath the radar for their contributions. This team, the fact that they are an elite level defensive team, and in my opinion, match up fairly well with a lot of other teams in the Western Conference playoffs, I can safely say no one was expecting this. And with that being said, people, please let me know what you think about my list in the comment section below, and I'll see you all hopefully tomorrow with my top 4 most disappointing teams in the NBA this year. And with that being said, I'll see you all next time.